G'day and welcome back to the Brink, everybody.
Before we begin, feel free to like, share, subscribe and follow
Why do they have to do that?
because it helps us.
I've never actually liked, shared, and subscribed to anything, to be honest.
Anyway, guys, thanks for your support and more importantly, enjoy the episode.
Hey.
How are you? This is Mr. Brulé. How do you pronounce your surname?
Yeah, Brulé.
Brulé.
Brulee. Like
Yeah.
the cream brulee. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, so...
As my son used to say, you haven't been laid till you've been brulayed.
Fancy days. That's classic.
He sounds like a character.
Right, should we chop right in, eh?
Okie doke. So this episode, we dive into the power of something we all do every day without even thinking. Breathe. But what if breath could be more than just survival? What if it was the key to healing, clarity, and transformation? Today, we're joined by Dan Brulé, a true pioneer of modern breathwork. He's trained over 25,000 people in 68 countries.
I think that's 250,000.
250,000 people. Thank you for that correction, Matthew.
Oh, you're welcome. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, comma was in the wrong place. In 68 countries, including Navy SEALs, CEOs, Olympic athletes, as well as Tony Robbins, who not only worked with Dan, but wrote the foreword to his best-selling book, Just Breathe. Whether you're skeptical or curious, by the end of it, this episode might just have you breathing a little sigh of release. Here is Dan Brulé, and welcome to the Brink, Dan. All the way from Palm Beach, right?
Yes. I like it. I kind of live on the brink all the time, so it's appropriate.
Yeah, but you can bring yourself back with the breathing.
Easily. Yeah, I like to. It's a line we're dancing on. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, so Dan, can you tell me, like, it's fascinating for me because I sort of found, like, breathing techniques on my own, but I sort of came to them when I was stressed or, like I used to be an athlete. So, before a game, you'd always be deep breathing, that sort of stuff, and that would always relax you. But how did you find it? And you've been doing it for since the 70s, I believe.
Yeah, before it was a thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. How did you come across it? What led you to being this expert in it?
The guru.
Yeah. It was never really a conscious choice. It was like the spirit of breath just kept picking me up by the scruff of my neck and sticking my nose in breathing, even whenever I tried to do anything else. I was raised in the Catholic Church, and I can remember in kindergarten, the pastor, Monsignor, coming around and visiting all the classes on Friday. And the first time he came, he was talking about the book of Genesis and how God took the dust of the earth and formed the body of man and breathed into the nostrils of man the breath of life. I don't know, it just lit a spark in me. I couldn't understand why everybody wasn't excited. What? God is breathing into us? And I think I got a little too animated because I have vague memories. The priest pushing my shoulders down, trying to sit me in my chair, and the nun tapping me on my head, trying to calm me down. I guess I got a little too animated, but lit a flame that day. And then I was the kid in charge having breath-holding competitions in the schoolyard, and hyperventilating and squeezing each other, passing out.
I used to do that.
And I had more near drowning experiences than I can count, and had the wind knocked out of me so often. So I just got more and more interested in the breathing. And my first job was as an X-ray technician, and chest X-rays are one of the easiest X-rays to take. So as a student, I was getting all the chest X-rays. And when you take a chest X-ray, you tell the person, take in a deep breath, hold it, and then click, you take their picture. And so I was watching people very carefully because if they're breathing, the picture, it's going to come out blurry. So I started watching very carefully, and I realized, my God, everybody does something different. Those same instructions, take in a deep breath and hold it. And the muscles they use, the expression on their face, what they went through to accomplish a full breath, what they even thought was a full breath. And it was like the breathing just started speaking to me. And then I took a CPR course. They had it at the hospital one weekend, so I learned CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and within 2 weeks, I was up in the intensive care unit with my mobile X-ray machine, and and the guy that I came to X-ray flatlined. While I was there, his heart stopped. So, when training kicks in, I pumped on his chest. I blew into him a couple of times, and he blinked and woke up. Wow. It was like a freaking miracle. You could bring somebody back from the dead. Who wouldn't want to do this every day, And, but when you love what you do, the universe gives you lots of opportunities to do it. So I'd be at a restaurant, somebody chokes on food. We're at the beach, somebody drowns. I'm on an airplane, somebody has a heart attack. I started to think maybe I'm bad luck. People are dropping like flies around me so that I could do what I love, And then I went into the military and ended up in deep sea diving and special operations and underwater rescue, which is all about breath control and breath holding and working in a recompression chamber and mixing gases for diving. And so I don't know. It was like it was a mission that I was on and didn't realize it. When I got out of the military, I couldn't translate a lot of what I had been doing in the military into normal society. And I ended up at University of Massachusetts, and I was introduced to rebirthing. And rebirthing is a particular breathing breathwork practice technique. And I'll tell you, in the first 10 or 15 minutes of breathing, all the PTSD, all the stress, 5 years in the military just slid off me like skin off a snake. And
Really?
Oh man, I was renewed. The clouds, I'd never seen so white. The sky was so blue. The trees, the leaves had light shimmering around them. It was like it opened up the doors of my perception. I fell in love with life, and I thought, holy cow, this is a whole new dimension to breathing that I had been practicing up till then. And I've never looked back. And so actually, whatever you were reading is old. I've now been to 73 countries, and we're well over 300,000 people that I've literally had my hands on in the last 50 years. So even somebody really stupid like me, if you do something long enough, you're bound to get good at it.
Wow. It's fascinating. I can't believe, it seems like you were born for it. But rebirthing, what is that? Is that a basic technique or?
Yeah, well, it was developed by Leonard Orr, and it was at the same time it was developed in the 70s. It was around the time of Arthur Janoff and primal scream therapy, and a French obstetrician, Frederic Laboyer, who wrote a book called Birth Without Violence. And people were beginning to recognize that birth is a huge trauma. It's the closest you're going to get to death, other than your real death, going from the womb to the world. And that journey through the birth canal and the first few moments of life and the early impressions and that first breath that you took, it's extremely traumatic, and it lays down patterns in the subconscious that are then replayed throughout your life. Like,
Really?
You have to struggle to be born. You got to struggle to work. You got to struggle to survive. You got to struggle and make money. You struggle in relationships. And that energetic bond that was separated when the umbilical cord gets cut, even if you're not already breathing, so you've been getting all your energy from the umbilical cord, and then they cut it, and now you got to breathe or die. And so most people don't really have a chance to relax into breathing and play with it and get used to it. They just have breathe or die. And it's sort of like, if you got if the fuse goes out in your house, short circuit or something, and you've got 10 appliances, washing machine and computer and microwave, and you got all this stuff plugged in, and you pull the main switch, you immediately blow a fuse and short circuit. You got to go around and shut everything off, then put on the main switch, and now turn things on one at a time. That we didn't have a chance to do that at birth, and so we fried our circuits. We short-circuited, and at the time there was talk about, is there life after death? The real question is there life after birth? Do we survive birth with all of our faculties, all of our abilities? And so rebirthing was about going back, remembering, re-experiencing your birth, and changing all the negative impressions into positive framing and so on. And also there's a lot of stuff trapped in our nervous system. A lot of pain and trauma trapped in our body, and breathing just washes, burns, blows all that stuff out. So originally we called it rebirthing. sounded a little too woo-woo for a lot of people, and it sounded even like born again Christian and stuff. And so, it got to be just called breath work, and that's a little more
Okay.
new term. But
Wow.
it's still the core technique that I teach. It's conscious, connected, circular. It is a specific breathing pattern. Conscious, connected, circular breathing with an active inhale and a passive exhale, no pauses or gaps. And it just triggers a process of transformation, of healing, of growth, of awakening. And it's extraordinary. I love it to be with somebody before and after a session and watch the transformations and watch the awakening and cry with them and laugh with them and take part in that healing. It's like, I can't think of anything better I want to do.
Wow. So that really happens. So so it's just purely just through, like, are they deep inhales and long exhales through the nose, through the mouth? Is it control
Well, long inhales, long exhales. In the rebirthing breath work, we don't control the exhale. You control the inhale. You use imagination. Imagine pulling in light, love. It's like a meditation. You track the sensations, front to back, side to side, top to bottom. So you're really meditating on the inhale, consciously pulling in. But then the exhale, you just snap it loose. You let it go. You set it free. You don't control it. So it's applying this principle of yin yang, active, passive, male, female, doing, being. And there's something magical when we slip into that relationship to life. And it's applying universal principles, circles and cycles. I mean, that's a universal principle. Rhythm, we breathe in rhythm, the rhythm of the tides, day and night, the seasons. And so what we do is we apply universal principles to the breathing, and we shouldn't be surprised that it unlocks a lot of power and potential that's buried in us or blocked in us or dormant in us. And you said something really cool when you started about breathing. We just think about it like it's what's to think about. But most people's breathing is like a pilot light in an oven. It's enough to keep you alive, but you can't cook anything with it. And so you can't live off that little flame. You can't cook from that little flame that's the pilot light in an oven. You got to turn your breath up, and you got to start, really be proactive and active. And it's so powerful that you really, it's scary for people when they get in touch with how much energy is really alive in them. It can be scary. People are afraid of their own power. They're afraid of their feelings. They're afraid of their emotions. And so they're living in a kind of a box trying to contain and protect and insulate. And the breath just comes in like rotor-rooter and just blasts everything out. And so it's so now we take it more gentle. We work over a series of sessions so people have a chance to integrate and do some processing in between. So breath work is linked with, various mindset practices, body work, massage, having important conversations, working out conflicting thoughts and limiting beliefs. So it's an all-out transformational practice for
Yeah.
those who are ready, for those who are willing, for those who are able. Oh man, it's life-changing. And I know that sounds like, hyperbole. Everybody's, it's life-changing. Well, damn, this is
No.
what you call real life-changing.
No, I'm definitely with you. Like, I'm a big believer in it. It certainly does. When you're stressed and you take a few moments, or a couple of minutes or 3 or 4 minutes, and just slow yourself down and deep breathe, hold your breath for a little bit, breathe out. It's amazing just how calm you get, right?
Oh,
I've got,
if you work in high stakes life and death situations, you're trained to breathe. When you need to manage your arousal, when you need to focus, when you need to get your heart rate from 180 beats a minute down into a normal range, when you're at the end of your rope, when you're highly stressed, you don't reach for your weapon, you don't reach for a radio, you can't call your mother, you get a handle on your breathing. And as soon as you get your handle on your breathing, you're already redirecting energy, you're shifting focus, you're balancing your nervous system, and everything comes in, and you're more functional, you perform better, you're more awake and alert to your environment. And so, yeah, I mean, people who work in those high stakes life and death situations, they're trained to breathe. I mean, lives are at stake, millions of dollars, Air Force pilots, on an $80 million damn jet. You got to be able to handle what comes up inside of you during those really scary moments. And breathing,
Yeah,
how you
bro,
do
like,
it.
it all makes absolute perfect sense. So with that knowledge, and like this, I know this, David probably knows this. Why aren't we teaching? Like, why isn't this in our schools at an early age? Like, why aren't we? I know people are like, oh, you say the word meditate, and people are like, oh, yeah, yeah. But I think even that's changed now. Like, I think people are way more open to it, right? So why isn't there a push? Because it works. Like, I'm
Yeah.
a big advocate. Like, it works. Why isn't there a push to get this into our schools and onto our children at an early age?
Actually, there is, but it's the adults in the room that make a difference, and it is going in the schools. Like New York City, for example, the mayor, Brian Adams, every public school in New York City, every single day, every classroom, 3 to 4 minutes of breathing. And if the kid doesn't want to breathe, they can put their head on their desk and they can take a nap for 3 to 5 minutes. And so it's slow. I mean, try to change a system, political system, financial system, economic system. Good luck. Educate. It's like turning the Queen Mary around. It's very challenging. It takes generations to cause these real, true changes. And so it starts with us.
Yep.
And kids are modeling how we react. They're modeling how we handle stress. They're modeling how we breathe. And so it's like, it's happening. It's coming, not fast enough for me, but more and more. It's being introduced into more and more schools. I was part of a UN committee, and we created a manual for school teachers called the Breathing Classroom, and it's got a whole slew of different exercises for age-related, grade level, issue-specific, and cool little breathing games, bunny breath, ninja breath, and wood chopper breath, and bicycle pump breath. You make a game out of it, and kids love it. And then they
Like,
take
can
it.
you give me the instructions?
Yeah,
I want to play wood chopper breath.
yeah, that's good for you.
Yeah, hard, I bet.
Dan, I was going to ask you, you were mentioning before people in high stakes careers or job roles, things like that. But for just like a normal person like myself, like we were talking earlier, Matthew and I, about breath work. He's done a bit of stuff with it. I never have, but I've understood the power of it. I used to get really bad anxiety, particularly in places where there are lots of crowds, supermarkets, that sort of stuff. And one day I noticed I was spinning, I was disorientated, like literally like, where am I? And then for whatever reason, I noticed I'd been holding my breath for like maybe 30 seconds, maybe longer. And I was like, that's weird. Why am I holding my breath? It was kind of like a panic reaction. I don't know. And as soon as I started breathing again, like the way that I do after a big workout where I breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth, the anxieties went, it totally minimized. So I've understood the power of that, but I've never equated it to the ability to really affect maybe things like stress or focus or performance or parlay it into like the broader world for myself.
The link between breathing and anxiety and breathing and stress is a no-brainer. Every time you have a psychological shock or an emotional shock or a physical shock, something happens to the breathing. It gets jammed up, it gets blocked, it gets held. Like pain will do it, right? And then when the pain goes away, and so we just have to turn it around. When you start getting into pain or fear, anxiety, you need to turn to the breath and restore the expansion, the relaxation, and restore the smooth flow. And it's like oil and water. Certain breathing patterns cannot mix with pain or fear, anxiety. One of them has to go. And what people don't realize when they're anxious, and a good place to start is to remember anxiety is aliveness. The feelings of anxiety are literally feelings of aliveness, but they are distressing feelings of aliveness. They're overwhelming feelings of aliveness. And so you got to learn how to manage, a rush in your energy, because if your system resists it, your experience is going to be negative. If your system flows with it, it's going to be a positive experience. So, for example, fear and excitement is the same energy. If you feel fear and you say yes, and I mean yes systemically, you relax, you flow, you move, then your experience is excitement. If you feel excitement and you resist it or you say no to it, then your experience is fear. So it's the same energy. And getting your breath moving gets your energy flowing, and then you can channel emotional energy through the breath to take the stress off the body and the mind. And that's a skill, that's an art. And it doesn't take a lot of practice, and people are very surprised how quick and they can really get good at this stuff. So, see, every psychological state, every emotional state, every physiological or chemical state has a corresponding breathing pattern, an associated breathing rhythm or quality. And when your state changes, your breathing pattern changes. And everybody can see this. The way you breathe when you're peaceful and calm and relaxed is very different than when you breathe when you're upset and angry and afraid. And so it's a two-way street. If every time my state changes, my breathing pattern changes, then it works the other way. If I change my breathing pattern, I can change my state.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is going to probably sound ignorant. Is it kind of like you learned to acquire a tool belt of techniques, breathing techniques, and then in order to realize that you're in a certain state, you've got to be, I guess, checking yourself. Like I wasn't noticing that I wasn't breathing until something made me. But you being aware, and then once you realize I'm fearful, I'm anxious, I'm this, I'm that, is that when you pull out the technique?
There you go. So everything begins with breath awareness. I mean, that's the very first thing, to develop the habit of turning to your breath and noticing your breath when you're stuck in traffic, when someone is insulting you, when you're really enjoying music, when someone's criticizing you, when you feel beautiful. Most people don't pay attention to their breathing in those moments, so they don't make the connections that are really powerful. So I used to call what I did breath therapy. I still do it because I went to the University of Massachusetts, and the word rebirthing was just a little too woo-woo. So I started calling it breath therapy. And in my model, there's two basic concepts in breath therapy. One is that your breathing mechanism, your respiratory system, has been damaged. It's not functioning as fully as it could be. So the breathing mechanism needs to be healed, liberated, freed up, loosened up, get back to normal. And once you've healed the breathing mechanism, then the breath becomes a therapeutic tool. So, for example, if every time, and I started practicing in the military, if every time I started to get tight or get tense, I would deliberately take a breath and shake off the tension. Well, I've done that so often that now I don't even have to think about it. And before I even notice it, if tension builds up in my system, my breathing comes in all by itself and washes away that tension. I notice that happening. I don't notice the frog starting to get boiled. I don't notice the little anxiety, the little tension, or if my bliss gets dented and I start coming down into a depressed state. My breathing is automatically triggered because I practice. And so my breath is keeping me in the zone all by itself because I practiced often enough. I programmed and trained my breathing to handle that. And I don't have any resistance to it. I'm comfortable with all the feelings that come up. And so my breath is free to do what it was meant to do. And it doesn't bump into my fears or my habits or my tension. It doesn't, and so that's my understanding of breath therapy. And so once you heal the breathing mechanism, and David, what you were talking about are classic birth trauma symptoms. Yeah. Claustrophobia, crowded place, you kind of don't know where you are, and building anxiety. That's the unconscious memory of birth. And all you need to do is about an hour of breathing with a good coach, and you're going to purge that from your system, and it'll never happen again.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's classic. You can find the original rebirthing book, and you'll, everything but your name will be in there.
Wow.
Really?
That's incredible.
Because I always thought of rebirthing was like weird, crazy hippies, like literally reacting reenacting a birth.
Yeah, well, some people took it there because it spontaneously happened. And so when it started spontaneously happening, people thought, well, let's make it happen. And that's where nature and us begin to get in conflict instead of in harmony. So even the breathing technique, which is an active inhale, passive exhale through the mouth. When someone was going through a deep transformation, a powerful healing, when they were, taking a leap, a quantum leap in their awakening, the breathing clicked into this pattern by itself. It was originally observed. Every time someone went through a powerful transformation, a deep healing, a tremendous release, the breathing spontaneously clicked into this pattern. And so it happened often enough that we thought, hey, if every time a person goes from pain to no pain, fear to no fear, every time they enter this transformational deep healing process, the breathing does this by itself, why don't we practice this breathing and see if it doesn't trigger a release, a healing, a growth? And ta-da, bada bing, bada boom, that's exactly the way it works.
Yeah, exactly. So, Dan, clearly you practice on a daily basis. So what would you suggest to people that are watching this? How do they start if they're interested in this? And, it's not super complicated, is it?
No.
But, yeah, we're all pretty good at it, but we just...
Yep. So that's the problem. It's too simple, it's too basic, it's too obvious, and people overlook it and they underestimate it, and they go off looking for complicated solutions when it's literally right under their nose. I mean, it's a quintessential cliche, for God's sakes. And so start with breath awareness. You don't even have to breathe in any special way. You just tune into your breathing, observe your breathing, witness it, just feel it, listen to it, observe it. Don't even breathe in any special way. Begin the training of mindfulness, of conscious presence and interoception. You turn inward and you stop paying attention to your heartbeat and muscle contractions and energy moving and the breathing. And if you observe the breathing like a witness and you start to feel the breath breathing you, you're going to see where you, say, abort the exhale, where you don't allow the exhale to complete, or you rush into the next inhale, or you start breathing and you're using muscles that don't belong in the breathing. You start artificially manipulating the breathing. All of these patterns you're going to start to observe in yourself. And if you're genuinely interested in healing and growth and awakening, then your intuition will guide you. So you start with I call it breath watching. You can meditative awareness, and you apply that to your breathing. And 5 minutes, 3 times a day, where you just unplug, disconnect, close your eyes, and you can breathe however you want, but you don't have to breathe at all because your body will breathe itself, and you just get into the experience, and it becomes like a love affair. You start, you find that when you take a long inhale, that stretching sensation feels really good. And when you give yourself a sigh of relief, it feels really good. And you're going to start naturally allowing those things to happen. So I start with breath awareness, just meditating on your breathing. There's no way around it. If you're not willing to do that, you're not interested in healing. You're not interested in growth. Don't bother me. Don't waste your time. But if you really care and you haven't already done a lot of meditation or breath work, then that's the best place to start. And then you play with your breath. So, I start everyone with the sigh of relief. So the sigh of relief, it's not even a technique. It's not an exercise. It's a natural response that happens. It's hardwired into the body. And Midwestern University, Medical University, years ago did the study on the sigh, and they realized that a person sighs about every 5 minutes, about 12 times an hour. Nature prompts you to take an inhale that is twice as big as normal. This hyperinflates all the alveoli. It's like nature couldn't depend on us to remember to take deep breaths now and then, so it forced us to do it. And so that extra stretch, the extra expansion, that's what triggers a sigh of relief. So start doing that. You take an inhale that's twice as big as normal on purpose. You take a normal breath in and then put another inhale on top of it and then let go and start to exaggerate it. When you let the exhale go, snap it loose, dump it out. When you let the exhale go, relax your jaw, relax your shoulders. And when you breathe in, use your imagination. Visualize breathing in light or love or power or energy. Connect it to an affirmation. I am clear, I am calm, I am safe, I'm productive, whatever. So start to add some juice to the breathing with consciousness. And maybe you take a breath that's 3 times bigger than normal. And then you let go, and you let go of everything. Let go of the thought you were just holding on to. Let go of the past. Let go of any anger or resentment or grudges. And you're going to start healing yourself in a very natural, organic way. You're going to start waking up.
Yeah. Oh, bro, it's so like, you know what? Like, we've sort of been on this journey together, but the way you've explained it, if it came from us, people would be like, oh, shut the fuck up. But because it's like, but it's just so you're so on the money, and everything you've said is exactly like, and you sort of come to it in a natural way. Eventually, you sort of go down that path. Look at them go.
Yeah, all it is you everybody already knows how to do a sigh of relief. So all you do is you exaggerate it. You make it more dramatic. You make it theatrical. I mean, I get people at my seminars to do Shakespearean sighs of relief.
Okay.
You know, because you're talking to your lizard brain. And this ancient part of our brain that monitors our breath and it regulates our breathing. So if I have unconscious breathing habits where I just keep holding my breath and I'm not even aware of it, putting a key in the door, I'm holding my breath. Trying to think of something, I'm holding my breath. I'm holding my breath. Getting up from a chair. And all this breath holding sends a message to our lizard brain. Danger, be careful, watch out. And so without realizing it, we're creating chronic anxiety by constant moments of breath holding. And so you got to compensate for that by giving yourself these long, juicy inhale. And immediately, if you prolong the inhale, the lizard brain is already going, whoa. No emergency. I can smell the flowers. Like everything must be okay. And then you exaggerate the exhale where you release the breath and you release muscles and joints. That sends such a powerful message to our lizard brain. It goes, whoa, I must really be safe. I must feel really good. And so now you're sending a different signal to your nervous system. And you can guarantee it's going to change your everyday life because you are the breathing, you know, that lizard brain is monitoring every breath. And if I don't complete my exhale, or I rush my inhale, that's danger, be careful, watch out. And so I'm constantly got my foot on the danger button and I'm not even aware of it. I'm going through my regular activities and I'm oblivious to the messages I'm sending to my nervous system. So breathing is a way to consciously choose the message that you send to that amygdala, to that reptilian brain. And it's got no choice but to come into harmony. Whatever quality you put into your breathing, that's going to be the quality of your thoughts. That's going to be the quality of your feelings in your body, your emotions, your movement. So, you know, there's no way around.
Keep going. Keep going, mate. Keep speaking to me. Speaking my language.
What about breath? He's going to be on a big high.
Oh, it's so good. I'm going to be in such a high after this.
What about the breath work with regards to healing? You know, we've touched on the rebirthing stuff, but healing trauma and those sorts of things. It seems a little different to, say, the lizard brain and moment-to-moment anxiety.
I have what I call a formula for transformation. It has 3 ingredients. The first is awareness, the consciousness factor. If there's a hole in the ground in front of me and I'm not conscious of it, I can fall in the hole and break my freaking neck. But if I'm aware of it, I just don't even think about it, just go around it, and no problemo. So the first ingredient in the formula, you got to become conscious of your reactions, your thoughts, your emotions, your posture, your muscular habits. And so that's the first ingredient. You got to practice that. And then the second thing is relaxation. Half of the work in breath work is relaxation. When you relax, something opens and softens. And now anything trapped in the nervous system, like trauma, the doors are open. But it'll just hover there without the breath. So if you breathe while you relax, the relaxation opens and softens, creates spaces between the cells. And then when you breathe, the breath can penetrate and start flushing out and cleaning. So if you just breathe without relaxing, then you're going to huff and puff, but you're not going to absorb any of the prana, the chi, the ki. The breath can't penetrate your structures, your organs, your cells. So I live in Mexico, in Los Cabos. And we have a 30-acre orchards and gardens there, and we're exactly 100 meters under the Tropic of Cancer. So we're in the tropics, but it's dry tropics, hard-packed, mineral-rich soil. And when it rains, the water just washes along the surface and looks for the ocean. But if you turn the soil, if you loosen the soil, if you soften the soil, then when it rains, the soil drinks up the water. So we have to combine breathing and relaxation. So the first ingredient in the formula is awareness. You got to be aware of your tensions. You got to be aware of what's happening with your breathing. You got to be aware of, your unconscious, what's usually unconscious. Now you're becoming conscious of. And then you relax on every exhale. And so the relaxation is the release factor. And breathing is the energy factor. So if I just breathe and huff and puff, okay, I might get a little buzz, things happen, but the next step in breathing, getting air from the lungs to the world and the world to the lungs, that ain't enough to survive. That air, call it air, has to get into the blood. There's a second level of breathing on physical level, the exchange of air between lungs and the blood, but that's not enough. If anybody who ever takes a little O2 test, a little red infrared thing they put on your finger, our blood is already saturated with oxygen, like 98%. What the hell is 1% more going to do? Nothing. So the real thing is carbon dioxide. There's a lot of hype that I can super oxygenate my cells by breathing deep and fast. Just the opposite. When you hyperventilate, you blow off carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide is a vasodilator. And so if you blow off carbon dioxide, you upset the pH balance. Carbon dioxide is an acid. So you upset the pH balance and everything constricts. And if you can tolerate higher levels of CO2, everything dilates. CO2 is a vasodilator. Microvessels, bronchial vessels, tiny vessels in the brain, they relax and dilate, and that allows for the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the brain. You hyperventilate for 1 minute, and you can reduce the supply of oxygen in your brain by 50%. Anybody can do it. So relaxation is the piece. So for me, the formula is wake up, let go, and take charge. You got to wake up to what's happening inside of you. You have to be able to let go and relax, and you got to be able to breathe to give yourself energy, generate energy. And now you got a formula that you can take into any healing or performance event.
And you can do it. There's the thing. It's like when you notice yourself, losing control or getting anxious, getting nervous, getting worried, you don't need half an hour. You just go, okay, take a big deep breath. Here's the thing for you. When you hold your breath, Dan, when you hold your breath, we hold our breath, because we've been doing that a bit lately, holding our breath for ages to see how long you can hold your breath for. Is that good or bad? That's good, eh?
Oh, breath holding, I consider an advanced practice. Before you practice breath holding, you should practice breath watching. You should practice breath allowing. And then, it's like on a first date. You go on a first date, you don't start controlling the person, making them do tricks for you. You're getting to know them, you don't start controlling them. You wait till you're married, and then you start all that stuff. The yogis loved breath holding because you can be in control. And when you're in control, you're like on top of your game, and it's like, and so I love breath holding. I teach it. I train myself. I I had the record back in 1970 in the Navy for breath
How
holding.
long?
How long? How long? Come on, mate.
At the time in 1970, it was 6 minutes and 6 seconds.
Wow.
Well, you know what the record is now underwater?
It's about 12.
24 minutes and 37 seconds.
No.
24
serious?
minutes, 37 seconds. You can watch him on YouTube. He's a Croatian. His name is Budimir Shobat.
24 minutes.
24 minutes and 37 seconds. And he didn't stop practicing till he was 50 years old. And in 2 years, he has a world record.
See, because we did this the other day. I said to David, "Oh, look, I'm going to start holding my breath," and I did it for like 3 minutes and 40 seconds.
We're quite competitive.
That's outstanding.
I thought there's no way he's going to get
more
this.
than that.
No way he's going to get this. No way he's going to get this. He brings me up and he goes, he sends me a photo of his phone and the
Because I
stopwatch.
knew he wouldn't believe me, so I screen grabbed it.
It was like 4 minutes, 22 seconds. I said, "Yeah,
Whoa.
bullshit." Okay, let me get back to you. Well, I was sitting there doing that.
For people just starting out, I wouldn't recommend that kind of training. I would take a normal breath in, a normal breath out. Don't even prepare as if you're about to take a deep breath, because first you got to do something with your baseline. And you might be able to override temporarily your baseline, but there's going to be no benefits. You can force yourself to fight and hold and stuff, and that's useful. That's really useful, no doubt about it. But you're not going to create any permanent change. You're not going to make a systemic adjustment where now you have a new default level, So you take a normal breath in, a normal breath out, and then pinch your nose, seal your lips, and then relax everything behind it. So you don't have to hold your breath. You're blocking the passage. And then everything behind it can relax. And then you watch for the first urge to breathe. It's very subtle. But you watch for it, listen for it, feel for it. And then when it registers in your system, try to relax in that moment a little bit more. So you relax in the presence of that very compelling urge to breathe. And then just don't pull the breath in. Don't take a breath. Receive the breath. So you're relaxing into the feelings that are starting to build up because you're holding your breath, and you just practice relaxing in the presence of them. Don't fight with them. Just relax in the presence of them. And then when the urge gets to be significant, then you just relax into that urge, and you don't pull the breath in. Don't take a breath. Receive breath. And then a certain amount of air is going to come in by itself, and then you take over and take it further, all the way up to the top, the very full. And then let go and use the exhale like you're sliding down into a peaceful, still place at the bottom of the exhale. And then you just linger there, everything open, everything soft. And you're just meditating, watching for that urge to breathe in. And then gradually you just you postpone the inhale a little longer. And over a couple of weeks, you've recalibrated your system. You will definitely be less angry. You won't get as irritated. You'll have more endurance, and you haven't done anything except this very simple. And then when you take in a deep breath and hold it, you will surprise yourself how long you can go. And the gauge, a pause at the bottom of the exhale. You should be sitting at rest. The average person should be able to tolerate a 30-second pause. And if you're any kind of a performer, or you want to be a peak performer, you need to get comfortable with the 45-second or even a 60-second pause at the bottom of the exhale. And it's a relaxed pause. You're not holding, you're not blocking, you're just hovering in the silence and stillness. And so you start there. And this lays the foundation and the groundwork. Then when you start practicing taking in deep breaths, holding the breath, man, you'll go way, way much further than if you would have just started with that kind of practice.
Yeah, but Dan, isn't that interesting though? You don't learn to, when you learn to hold your breath, you don't think to not take a breath at the bottom. You go and hold your breath, and then when you blow it out, you don't think to go, okay, I can't take a breath. No one teaches you to do that. Yeah. And I sort of fell onto that by my own. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. And the buzz you get, the buzz is so, it's like,
Sure.
oh, it's,
And if you
Just
can
talk
hold
through
your
that
breath,
quickly.
so when you exhale, so you inhale,
Yeah.
you hold your breath for a bit, like be it 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Then when you exhale, you don't take a breath in at the bottom of the exhale. You hold
you
it.
just hover
You
there.
just hover there.
Got it.
So you're not taking, you've got no oxygen, you've got no CO2, you've got no oxygen, you've got nothing. You just, that's pretty much it, eh? You've got nothing
Yeah,
in there.
you're on
Nothing.
empty. So,
You're
and
on
like,
empty. Yeah.
and if you can hold your breath on an empty lung for a minute or 2 minutes, imagine what you can do on a full breath. And it's
Yeah.
not holding. You know, we have to be careful with the language. It's an open pause. It's a
Right.
relaxed pause. And so you don't want to blow the breath out. You don't want to try to empty yourself because now you're using muscles to squeeze. And when you relax, those muscles
Okay.
are going to want to draw breath in. So you
That's what I'm
just
doing wrong.
exhale, go.
That's what I do wrong.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And then pause.
Okay. So Dan, you probably, but I've missed it in all the excitement. So with all this, how does it change the chemicals in your brain and stuff when you're not breathing, when you've got no oxygen? How does that open up and and make your mental state over 2 to 3 weeks? What's the science behind that?
Well, on the chemistry level, carbon dioxide is a volatile acid and it's a vasodilator. So the more you can tolerate high levels of CO2, the more the bronchial passage open, the more the microvessels in your brain open, and that sets the stage for the delivery of oxygen nutrients to the cells. So just on that physiological level, see, the difference is breathing versus respiration. Breathing is a behavior, and it's subject to all the other rules and dynamics of any, behavioral, some behaviors make you rich, some behaviors put you in jail. And so
Yeah.
respiration is reflexive. You're not doing it. It's self-managing chemistry, biology, self-managing. And so very often when we try to breathe to accomplish certain things, we aren't serving our respiratory needs. So, people start to practice breath control and breath holding and hyperventilation, and it really throws their whole system out of balance. So you got to remember that breathing is behavior and respiration is reflexive, and it's a doing and being game, and it's a dance between me taking control and me putting the oars in the boat and just let the river of life live through me. And you can't be out of balance with that. You got to be a participant in a balance between that. So you build that into your practice. And on
Wow.
cognitive abilities, how much oxygen nutrients your brain is getting, that's how clear you're going to be. And emotional levels, right? So when you get emotional, you feel like crying, one of the first things that happens is your throat closes up. It's as if the body is trying to protect itself from the intensity of the emotion. And so we need to learn to practice. We need to practice relaxing into intensity. And we need to practice creating a smooth flow of breathing when we start and everything's going chaotic. You got to reestablish a smooth breath and a smooth flow. And so you train those things ahead of time so that when you do get stressed, you've already got some skills and you can manage your emotions. You channel your emotions through the breath, and it takes the stress off the body and the mind. So you learn some basic skills, and then you train, and then when an event comes, your training kicks in and you can navigate it much better. You'll find yourself comfortable in moments you were never comfortable before. And you'll be clear and loving in moments when before you'd be getting pushed and pulled by your chemistry or your emotions or your fears or whatever. And it's just self-control, energy management. I learned to upregulate or downregulate my energy, and now I'm not at the whim of, other people, random feelings, miscellaneous urges. I'm in harmony with something really natural. And we
Absolutely.
establish it on the level of breath, and all the other levels just come into harmony with it.
It's so powerful though too, and you said it before. It's available to everybody and it's free. You know, like
All the reason people don't like it. If it's free, it must not be worth it.
But it's so there. It's like meditating. It's like, you meditate, but like if you take like 10, 15 minutes a day, you do a meditation, you can incorporate that with your breathing. The difference in your psyche and your health and just your general well-being is massive. And I'm speaking from experience. It's like I've only been doing this for 7 months, but you've noticed a massive change in me, right? Like
he's actually quite nice now.
I used to just be like, so I like to listen to you explain it and how well you've explained it. It's just been fascinating. I'm sure
it's endlessly fascinating.
Yeah.
One of the questions I really wanted to ask was, why would athletes come to you and CEOs and somebody like Tony Robbins? But I think that's a rhetorical question now. You've answered it. It's obvious.
Yeah, look at an Olympic athlete before they're diving and they got their toes curled around a board. What's the last thing they do before they dive?
They exactly.
Look at somebody doing a free shot in basketball. What do they do before they shoot?
Yeah.
If it works in those situations, it works everywhere.
Yeah, but you know what? It's so weird because I did that because I was a goal kicker. I was a professional athlete and I kicked goals. So you'd be running around and then you'd have to calm yourself down to kick your goal, right? And you just naturally breathe in and breathe out, like 3 or 4 breaths before you kick, So I've been doing that since I was 11 years old, right? And then all of a sudden I get to 57 and go, hey, maybe you should go back to doing that again. Right?
Yeah.
It's so weird how
it completely. You can use it to interrupt the pattern. Imagine two people arguing, and one person just goes,
"Yeah,
that's it, game over."
Yeah,
life takes a complete. Just remembering to. I wish I would have remembered to take a breath before I did certain things in my life. If I would have just stopped for a moment and taken a breath, I wouldn't have ended up. So it's so powerful, but it's training. Concepts get you nowhere. Training gets you everywhere. And so people listening, they go, "Yeah, that all makes sense." Great, it makes sense. Are you going to freaking practice or not?
Yeah, that's the difference, right? It's the difference. You actually have to practice, right? Like you can lead a horse to water. We can give you all the instructions, but in the end, if you don't put the effort in, you're not going to get the results. So.
Dan, with regards to the work you've done, the book we referenced before that you've written, how can people access your particular information or any other information that you might recommend to get them started or to further their journey?
Yeah, thank you. Breathmastery.com, www.breathmastery.com. I've written an article about breathing every month since June of 1976, and I've never missed a month. So you go into my archives at Breath Mastery, and you're literally going to find articles I wrote back in the 70s, and before it was even a thing. So breathmastery.com is a good place to start. And if you subscribe to my free newsletter, I send out a newsletter every month. I even send out a weekly one with one breathing tip or one breathing exercise every week. So if you go to breathmastery.com and you subscribe, I'll send you free stuff until the cows come home.
Wow, awesome.
And I have my Instagram is really getting. We're passing on a lot of really cool stuff at Dan Brulé Official. I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. If you Google breathwork, it's hard to miss me.
That's how we found you.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Hey Dan, look, it's been a real honor and a privilege to have you on, and it's just I'm sure anybody that listens to us will have gained a lot of insightful information. I just wanted to say thanks so much, and the world owes you a big favor too. You've obviously helped many people, so a big thanks from us, and if I may be so bold, a big thanks from the world, and keep up the good work, mate. It's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm blessed, man. I am.
You are.
And I appreciate it.
So do we. Thank you so much, my brother.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, man.
Bye.